In terms of next steps, I'll just run through maybe 2 or 3. And I think as with the country and as with the individual pain that we might all be feeling at home, the immediate next step is one of survival. And certainly in the Heritage Council's case, over the next 6 weeks, we have to survive a critical review of the organisation, which is viewing to merge us back, not back, because we never were, merge us into the Department of Arts, Heritage and the Gaeltacht. With all due respect to my departmental colleagues and to the Minister and to Government, the Heritage Council has very publicly stated that such a fate would be one that would be actually worse than death and would be far better to be abolished. Because the concept of doing the work that we do from a government department is certainly to me not conceivable. And again, that's said with all due respect. So we have to survive. I need to get Brendan Howland up in 6 weeks, 8 weeks' time and say the Heritage Council is a perfect example of what the public sector reform is looking to achieve, and that it will continue in its independent form, based in Kilkenny, serving the communities that it has built up a passionate relationship with, and continuing to support those communities in the best way that it possibly can. So until that spectre is removed and until government removes that spectre, all of the work that the Heritage Council has done to date is under threat. Because I have absolutely no doubt, to quote Fintan O'Toole in a very well considered article in the Irish Times, if we were to be merged into the department, much of what we do would be abandoned, the rest would be given low priority and would disappear. So, immediate thoughts, survival. We also, assuming then that we survive, we want to work with all of you and to continue along that path. It's one of partnership. The Heritage Council is not an imposer, it is not a designator, it is a facilitator, an empowerer, an encourager, to try and pick up on some of the points that were made earlier on. If the service that we do is valued, and over the course of the last 10, 12 years, then from our perspective, we have built up an infrastructure at a community level that we want to see maintained and to be there to actually keep that flowing. Conor, quite rightly, has emphasised one of the very important steps that the Heritage Council took in publishing its next 5-year plan to take us up to 2016. Heritage has to remain and be seen to be very relevant, and that has come through right the way through this discussion. Conor has emphasised the importance of making sure that the employment that the sector provides is highlighted. There is undoubted evidence of that. We have published recent research and will relaunch a research paper at the end of next month, just in time, I hope, to convince government that the Heritage Council and the heritage sector need to be supported to a much greater extent than they have been up until now. The importance to education has come through stunningly well all day, and again, it's something that from the Council's point of view, we need to make sure that we maintain at all levels, whether at primary, whether at secondary, or whether at third level. And there are commitments in our work to hopefully support the community that's represented here, and which is part of our community that is not represented here, to continue that work. Tourism has cropped up over and over again, and there is a very important economic imperative to do that. But I think it was Amanda Pedu, who I think may have gone now, who, when I talked about, say, the wind farm development in the Mont Saint-Michel, she very quickly came up to me and pointed out, okay, there's a benefit, of course, to designation of a World Heritage Site, but no one in their right mind goes anywhere near the Mont Saint-Michel in July and August, because it's just a question of survival. Even in a country as big as France, they don't have the capacity to actually manage the the visitors, manage the demand, and it's not somewhere to actually go to and visit at peak tourism time. We need to get that balance right. The heritage tourism industry needs to look at its capacity not only to market and promote, and this is something that I'm constantly arguing, and which has been a theme here today as well with Fáilte Ireland. There's no point in us marketing and promoting a product that is in constant decline. And that is what is happening at the moment, because the emphasis is on the marketing and the promotion of our cultural and our natural heritage, and yet there is diminishing emphasis on the actual management and conservation of that heritage, whether natural or whether cultural, and the availability of resources to communities to actually participate and contribute to that. We need to get that balance right and corrected, and in discussions with the Minister today, I would be much more optimistic than I was 24 hours ago that ultimately, politically, we will achieve that. From a tourism sector, it's a bit like them encouraging a new hotel in an area and then actually not putting a lick of paint on it for 10 years. Their tourists aren't going to continue to come for very long, and with our heritage and its uniqueness, exactly the same will apply. I have to actually say that also, Neil talked about looking at our legislation, looking at the way in which it works. Alison also talked about us trying to shoehorn conservation management and its conservation into the planning legislation. And it's just not made for that. It's not fit for purpose. And again, in terms of commitment from the Heritage Council, the Heritage Council has very clearly said we need, in terms of management of our landscapes, whether they're cultural or natural, and all the heritage that they contain, a new form of legislative provision in Ireland that is not about imposing, that is not about regulating, that is not about designating, but which is actually about facilitating communities to actually become empowered and enabled to do what they want with their heritage, with support from whatever authorities are there available to support them. And that is a complete mind change in mindset for our legislators. But it has worked elsewhere. You know, legislation can be empowering and enabling, not actually just regulating and designating. So our commitment is that we're still working very hard on the policy proposal that is with the Minister. He has committed to develop his national landscape strategy, and we see the way of implementing that as being just exactly that form of legislation that I've referred to. And if I can just refer to the gentleman in Donegal, that would provide exactly the framework that you're talking about. And whilst we have a very bad record in terms of environmental legislation, and people are afraid of it because it's been imposed, this would be a new way of communities gaining support to do what they want to do. It's enabling and it's empowering. And that's what I firmly believe, that in a democracy such as ours, that we actually need if we're going to tackle these problems. I'm going to leave it at that for now. You've been very patient. You've actually contributed to a great extent. I'm not going to thank anyone, because if I start to thank anyone apart from one group, then I'll forget somebody of great importance. But I really want to thank our international ICOMOS representatives who have travelled so far, who have actually enriched the discussion to an extent that I wouldn't have believed possible. And I know that the dialogue won't stop here. So I thank you for taking the time to contribute. I hope that the momentum here can be maintained, and certainly if we can help you in your work, we will continue to do so. I would ask everyone to thank. And final word from me, Peter Cox, University. Thank you very much.